Disappointment is my reaction. It's so important, the European Union, to Scotland and its prosperity. So my initial reaction is disappointment. However, I see it as an opportunity. And the opportunity is for Scotland to be in Europe but as an independent country. And the reaction that we're getting from emails and folk contacting the constituents would suggest that there's something very, very powerful happening. I think there will be a second referendum. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think people in Scotland, for probably the first time, universally see how impotent Scotland is. Here we are, Scotland votes 62% and effectively is being taken out against our will. So we have nearly every MP that you can ever get to Westminster. So it's time now, and the opportunity for Scotland to engage and be within Europe in its own right as an independent country. I think that will happen. Well, from my perspective, I've believed in Scottish independence for almost all my life, but they're gold dust. They are effectively the people who give us our independence, and of course the mere fact that what's happened, that Scotland has voted one way, England's voted another, and yet we're out. So I think that will give some people who voted no cause for thought, and they'll know how important that Europe is to the Scottish economy. And it's not just that, it's the engagement with other nations that are similar to ours. Most countries in Europe are small, like Scotland, and they understand our problems, they're the same as theirs. So I think it's a sea change, and those folk who see exactly what's happened and the benefit we'll get from it, well, I'm going to try and help all I can to persuade them that they should join us. Well, I was talking a couple of months ago, talking at a trade union organised meeting here in Clydebank, and the very point I made that if we think this government we have now, which I believe is more right-wing than Margaret Thatcher's, then you can, what's going to come after that is going to be really scary. So yeah, without a doubt, one of the problems I think for the rest of the UK is that we're going to have a very, very extreme right-wing government. And that's not good for anybody, to be quite frank. I know what they will be doing. I think that, it's clear from the messages that I'm getting that they are looking, they're expecting that an independence referendum too will be on the cards very, very soon. But what I would say is that I think I think it will happen. It will happen that we'll get an independence referendum, but we take it in our time. And I liked what I heard from the First Minister this very morning. It's the right way to go. We should be gearing up and bringing on board, although Clydebank particularly voted very, very high the last time, I think there's still scope to grow the number of people who voted. I don't blame people for voting no the last time, but they voted no on a false promise, and that promise was the threat to Scotland being in or out of Europe. And of course, last night's events have spelled that one a lie. In the party's manifesto at the last election, we pointed out if anything significant came on the table, like Scotland voting to remain within Europe and England voting to come out of Europe, then that would be enough to trigger a referendum, of course. We had to alert the people to that fact. It would have been wrong that all of a sudden to spring this on anyone. The fact that we were elected on that basis, then the referendum will take place. It's just a matter of time. Well, the first people I think about is Europeans that are here making a contribution in Scotland. And we've got so many of our people making a contribution all over Europe. And people own property and are retired, for instance, in Spain and in France. Well, I'm thinking about them and they'll be worried. So my message to them is quite clear, don't worry about it. Here's an opportunity to remain within Europe in our own right and be independent. So my message to our own people and that are abroad and folk that are from Europe living here, don't worry about it. And then my message to Europe, it proves the very point that we made. We're good Europeans. We know the contribution that Europe makes for us and what we can make for the rest of Europe. And so the message is, please listen. Unlike the last time, you need to voice. You need to use your voice to say, Scotland, welcome into Europe, and not the fear factor that happened the last time. Mm-hmm.